Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the latest edition of Terrace Talk. Of course, Cardiff City, the opposition this weekend. We're getting the lowdown from Simon Field, a commentator for Cardiff City. Simon, first and foremost, how are you this evening?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I don't know what the weather's like in Norwich, but in Cardiff it's pretty wet and miserable, and it has been all day. So, I'm glad to get out of the wet weather. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been a little bit hit and miss today in Norwich. A few speckles of rain, but on the whole, a little bit of sunshine this afternoon, which, of course, is much appreciated. Lots has happened since the last...
I was going to say, I don't know what the forecast is for Saturday, but of course, from what I recall about the style of play that Norwich have, they'll want it to be, a nice playing surface, and so they won't want too much rain, I imagine.
No, I think usually the pitch is being watered, though, before these games. Whether that suits Norwich at the moment, I don't know, but we'll see what we get on Saturday. Of course, lots happened since we last met in November. Cardiff not been on the greatest run of form. I think it's 5 wins in all competitions since that game on November the 11th. What's the recent months been like? It maybe looks a little bit difficult from far.
Well, I was actually going to say it. That game, the home game between Cardiff and Norwich, seemed to be a bit of a pivotal moment because we actually started under new manager. We started the season pretty well. We won 6 and drew 1 out of the first 10 games, and 2 of those away games. 2 of those defeats were away defeats to Leicester and Ipswich, and so things have been going quite well. Of course, that coincided with our sort of Premier signing of Aaron Ramsey. But after 6 appearances, I'm afraid he picked up an injury and he's only just made a return as a substitute appearance in the last couple of games. And then, that game in November, Cardiff against Norwich, I remember going into the game, there was some pressure on David Wagner. I think Norwich had lost 5 and drawn 1 of the previous 6. And then, surprisingly, Norwich took the lead from a corner. Now, Cardiff, I could mention, are better defending than they are scoring. Certainly, that's been the case this season. And we don't concede mainly from set plays. It's from open play. So to concede from a corner against Norwich was a big surprise. I mean, I do a bit of audio description commentary, which is for blind and vision impaired fans in the stadium. And I was almost, gobsmacked to say, hang on a minute, we don't concede from set plays, and we did concede. And then Cardiff then scored 2 goals in about 4 minutes, just before half time, to turn the game on its head. And then in the last 10 minutes, Norwich came back and scored 2 goals in 2 minutes to win 3-2. And so that eased the pressure on David Wagner. And I think Norwich then went on a great run and won 5 and drew 2 of the next 8, whereas Cardiff lost 5 of the next 7. So that game, was quite a pivotal moment for both clubs. Better for Norwich by a considerable margin than it was for Cardiff.
Yeah, you mentioned that kind of upturn of form for Norwich. That was a pretty crucial game in what was a spell where David Wagner maybe felt the pressure was starting to build quite heavy, as you mentioned. Currently 14.
I was going to say fans are notoriously fickle, and I saw a number of Norwich fans saying that David Wagner ought to go. It's like, well, he's obviously can't do it, and I thought, well, this is a bit harsh, isn't it? But yeah, and then it all transforms completely.
Yeah, pretty key that Josh Sargent's been back for us. He was missing for the game at the Cardiff City Stadium. He's pretty crucial for what we're trying to do. Going back to Cardiff, currently 14th in the table after 31 games. I suppose given the way last season transpired, you of course stayed up based on Reading's points deduction. Would you have taken mid-table this season, I suppose, or hoping that Cardiff could pick a bit?
I mean, yes is the short answer. It's just that after you start so well, what fans are like. They think, this could be the big transformation. And now that we've started this well, there's no reason why we can't continue to play like that. But of course, Championship football doesn't go like that, as you know, at Norwich, as we were just talking about the run before the Cardiff game and the run after the Cardiff game. So people were getting a bit carried away. But it does raise expectations. And then when things sort of plateau and maybe drop a little bit, there's obviously initial disappointment, but you're right. From the position of finishing 1 above the relegation zone, albeit we'd confirmed our safety a few games before the end of the season, so we did drop off in the last few games. To finish or to be mid-table, and I think we're about the team that's probably about mid-table mediocrity or respectability. I don't think we're going to trouble the the playoff places, and we're still a fair way off the relegation zone at the moment as well. So I mean, I saw manager Errol Bullett's press conference today, and he's not talking anything about easing off. He wants the players to keep going and keep going. But realistically, you're one of the teams on 48 points, which is, in contention for at least that final playoff spot, if not those two final playoff spots. But we are hoping that Aaron Ramsey might be able to make a start in the game against Norwich on Saturday. And if you look at our record, we are actually doing better away from home than home. I mean, you said we were 14th in the league. If you look at our home form would have us as 17th, but our away form would have us as 9th. So at the moment, we tend to go into away games with a bit more optimism than we do home games.
Yep. Busy January transfer window relatively on deadline day for Cardiff. 5 signings through the door: Nat Phillips, Jeju, Wilson Esbrand, Horvath, Turnbull. Are you not impressed by that window?
Well, you see, as I sort of hinted at earlier, our problem is scoring goals. Now, if you go back to the summer window, we were told, lined up the signing on loan of Kiefer Moore from Bournemouth. Kiefer Moore was a player that we sold to Bournemouth, and we were going to get him back on in the summer window. And what we were told was it only broke down at the 11th hour because of the player that Bournemouth were going to get in to replace him from Leicester. That deal broke down, so they weren't prepared to let Kiefer Moore go. So when it came to the January transfer window, it was, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Oh, we'll have Kiefer Moore signed up for this window. And Errol Bullett was very positive, saying, I want to get players in at the start of the transfer window, and we've got all our targets lined up. And word came out about who some of the targets were, and Kiefer Moore was mentioned as well. And then as the transfer window sort of was open, there were no sign-ins. And the end of the first week, the second week, the third week, and manager Errol Bullett made his, went out and made his displeasure known that he wanted players in at the start. And it was a case of, oh, well, that's not how the January transfer window works, because we have to wait to see what Premier League teams do and which players they're prepared to release, and we won't know until the very end. So we got a bit frustrated by that. And then all this story emerged then that we were very near the financial fair play limit, and therefore Errol Bullett actually said, oh, if you're told you've got £35, I went out and, compiled this list of players that cost £35. And then in the last week, you're told you've only got £10. He basically said he had to throw away the original list and come up with a list of cheaper players. So, yes, we had to get some players in because it had got really desperate. But I don't want to be too unfair, but it became obvious that they weren't his first choice of players. But yes, I mean, there's some decent players in there. Nat Phillips, as you mentioned, and that's been very useful because one of our ever-present centre-backs, Mark McGuinness, is out for 6 to 8 weeks with a hamstring injury, so he's slotted in there. And we've got Winston Eberl, whose name I can't ever quite remember, Nesbrand, from Manchester City. He looks very useful, but again, a young player, speed, but hasn't quite got the physicality for the Championship yet. But, he looks promising. David Turnbull from Celtic is one of 2 permanent signings that we made. And, there's some optimism and positivity about him that he's a midfielder that can score goals. So, high hopes from him. And our other signing was Irvin Horvath from Notts Forest as a goalkeeper. Now, he wasn't in their 25-man squad, although he played for Luton last season on loan. But he's going to have to come in for the game on Saturday because our number 1 keeper, Jack Anick, has got an injury and he's going to be out for 8 to 10 days. So we'll see him in action, although he did start at the West Brom game, the West Brom defeat in midweek. But it's going to be a bit of a different defense, so they're going to have to get to know each other fairly quickly.
Yeah, of course, it's Errol Bullett's job to try and gel these players together. Appointed in June. How popular has he been with the Cardiff fans? Has he been a good manager to deal with in terms of a press conference setting, or maybe the fans not taken to him?
I think he's still probably just on his honeymoon period, especially after the start of the season that we had, and being able to get in a sign-in like Aaron Ramsey. Aaron Ramsey would only have come. I mean, I know he lives in Cardiff and his family's in Cardiff, but he would have only come if he was happy with the setup. He's certainly one of those managers that is aspirational in terms of he at the start of the season, he didn't rule out the playoffs. He said, the aim is to get the playoffs. We had 3 managers last season. I'm not sure how many Norwich had, but we had 3, which we thought was at least 1, if not 2, too many. And we finished up with Sabri Lamouchi, the former Notts Forest manager, and we thought he might take charge this season. But our owner, Vincent Tan, who wants to take us back to the Premier League, I don't think Sabri Lamouchi said the right words as though that's going to be that easy. And so Errol Bullett was a manager who's got a fair amount of experience in Europe, certainly in Turkey. He said, he was saying all the right words to Vincent Tan and said, yes, I think we can. And so he got the job. I think I read that he's the first manager from Turkey to manage in any of the 4 divisions, the top 4 divisions. So, it's an experiment. At the moment, he's been very popular, as I said, especially after the start of the season. Some fans are starting to question now, but we talked earlier about fickle fans if things don't quite go your way. But yeah, I would say largely, the fans are still on his side.
Yeah, seems to be that way. Yeah, key man maybe so far this season. You mentioned Aaron Ramsey's been missing for quite a lot of the campaign. Would have felt like he could have been a pretty key option. But Perry NG, I've been quite a big fan of watching him. 5 goals, 3 assists.
Well, yeah, I was going to say to our top scorers are defenders. We've got Perry NG on 5. I mean, he has taken a couple of really good free kicks, and then we got Dimitri Gutas, one of the Greek players that Errol Bullett signed in the summer. He's our joint second scorer on 4 goals. So Perry NG, he tends to be our star player, and scoring goals and defending. There was talk in the summer that Luton Town were interested in him. That didn't come to anything, so it remains to be seen whether what comes from that. But yes, he is one of our more reliable performers, and he's chipped in with goals as well. So yeah, he's certainly an important player for us.
Yeah, he seems to be a player that's doing well this season. What sort of playing style does Bullett has he brought to Cardiff? I think in recent weeks he's maybe changed the formation. Has that been as a result of trying to get some results to sort of turn the tide a little bit?
Well, it's certainly, if you listen to the fans and the fact that we're not the lowest goal scorer in the Championship, but there's not that many teams below us. They claim that he's quite negative. Generally, there's been complaints that although our strikers haven't scored, that whoever we had as a striker, even if we had Erling Haaland, we wouldn't be scoring because of the lack of service to the players. So one of the reasons why we might be doing better away is we were quite good at counter-attacking football. And one player who is one of those players who is a young player and described as bags of potential and sometimes fulfills it and other times is a bit infuriating, is a midfielder called Ruben Colwill. And a lot of Cardiff fans are looking for him to start and make an impact because he is as I say, he's only young, but he's quite a tall player, but he is he is a ball player and he has got some speed as well. So he's a player that can make things happen in a team that is, not the most exciting and glamorous. In fact, I saw our defeat to Preston last weekend, and they're a bit the same. And it was a bit of an attritional game. And I thought, if I was in Preston, I don't think I'd go and watch Preston if I was looking for something to do. Whereas if I was in Norwich, I probably would, because my memories of watching Norwich over the years have been that they're a team that always look good going forward and are always likely to score, although they're always likely to concede as well. So, and that's probably why the home game finished 3-2.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of sort of the maybe key strengths and weaknesses. What would you say the key strength and the key weaknesses of this Cardiff squad? Maybe corners offensively and defensively, are pretty good. You mentioned, maybe key strength.
Well, and if you look at our goals scored, we've scored more goals from set plays than open plays. So we can we're good on set plays, attacking and defending. It's the open play we're not quite so good at. So if we're going to score, I would, it's more likely that we're going to score from a corner or a free kick than open play. And Norwich scoring is likely to be from open play, apart from that first goal at the Cardiff City Stadium. So I've seen predictions saying that Norwich are going to win 2-0, and I couldn't summon up a case to say that that's not going to be the case. But I would say, as Norwich, you want to watch us from set plays. That's certainly where our danger is. But we can be got at on the offensive. In actual fact, where I thought the tide turned with the home game was when Norwich in the second half started to hit a lot of high balls over the top, down the channels and down the middle. And I think Adam Idah came on towards the end, and his speed was very unsettling. And it was almost as if there was like a realization at half time that actually this Cardiff team is not the quickest defensively, although they're quite solid. So let's try and hit high balls and run onto them. And it certainly unsettled us. And I think that led to your victory. So bear that in mind tomorrow, I'd say. On Saturday.
On Saturday, yeah. Looking forward to what should be a good game. I think Norwich have got the upper hand, I'd say, over Cardiff in recent times. I think it's 5 wins and 1 defeat in the last 6 games. Saturday, your thoughts and feelings heading to Carrow Road? I mean, are you feeling positive? Are you feeling maybe on the sort of pessimistic side? You mentioned maybe the score predictions there that are being floated around. Feels like you may be tying towards a Norwich victory.
I think, I am. However, I think a big decision will be whether the manager actually starts Aaron Ramsey. I mean, he's made a second half substitute appearance in the last 2 games. And so Errol Bullock was asked about this at his press conference earlier this afternoon. And he sort of admitted it's a delicate balancing act between wanting to get him out on the pitch because he knows the impact he can have. As I said, he scored 3 goals in his 6 appearances at the start of the season. But also not wanting to get, for him to pick up another injury, which would probably rule him out for the rest of the season. I mean, he started in the second half on Saturday and on the game on Tuesday. It depends on with a third game in a week starting, from the beginning. Would that be too much for him? I think if he does play, I mean, it's inevitable. After being out for so long, he didn't look quite the old Aaron Ramsey in those 2 halves he's appeared in, but he's certainly getting back to the player we know he can be. So I think that will be a key thing for Cardiff if we can actually start Aaron Ramsey on Saturday, and there's certainly a possibility. Without Aaron Ramsey, I think we're going to unfortunately play a fairly defensive style, which I think will play into Norwich's hands the way I remember them being a team who likes to play the ball around and attack. For me, the key thing would be, are we going to start Aaron Ramsey?
Yeah, and of course, whether you do or don't start Aaron Ramsey, let's have a score prediction from you, Simon. How positive are you feeling?
All right. Without Aaron Ramsey, 2-0 to Norwich. With Aaron Ramsey, 2-1 to Cardiff.
There we go. That's where you heard it, people. You can. Aaron Ramsey's the key as to whether Norwich City are going to get a result. Simon, finally, just want to plug where people can listen to your commentary. I believe you mentioned there for the visually impaired. That's some really vital work.
Yes. So we do it for the home games at the Cardiff City Stadium, and it is because of rights issues. It's only available for fans who are actually attending the stadium. Okay. So if you go on the website, if you are going to visit the Cardiff City Stadium, there are details. There's an email address where you can register to pick up a receiver. So we broadcast it on what they call a closed loop system. So anyone in the ground who's got a receiver can listen to our commentary. But as I said, because of rights issues, it's only available to fans in the stadium.
There we go. Some really brilliant work there, Simon. I'm sure the Cardiff fans appreciate your work. Thanks for joining me this evening. I do appreciate your time and all the views there from the Cardiff City end. Hopefully we get an exciting game of football on Saturday. Norwich will hope to extend their unbeaten home run to 10 games, unbeaten in the last 9. So it's been a positive place, Carrow Road, of late. Cardiff, of course, not taking them lightly, could be a very difficult game. Aaron Ramsey, the key there. That's the theme from this Terrace Talk video. And with that, we'll round off. Lots of great content coming your way across our channels. We spoke to David Wagner just a few hours ago, so that will soon be available on our YouTube channel as well. And of course, by the time you're watching this, that will be up. So go and hear what he had to say. And of course, for Norwich City's sake, fingers crossed we can get 3 points. But I'm sure the Bluebirds will be heading to Carrow Road, hoping to pick up 3 points as well.